Okay, so here we begin. We, of course, had to fly across the ocean to get to Paris, but our flight was delayed, so we had to go through London, which ended up being a surprise. And we actually met up with one of my boyfriend's friends and hung out for the day with her there, which was actually really fun, if unexpected. And I will say, traveling internationally is like a nightmare, and I didn't have my bags for 5 days. But once we got there, we actually had to take a train into the city since we had an 8-hour layover. And this was actually really cool because you can take public transport or you can take this express train that took like 15 minutes to get from Heathrow to the center of London. And once we were there, we just walked around a bunch and had lunch. This was one of the parks that we stumbled upon, and it was gorgeous and, of course, grey because, that's London. And the thing that we were unaware of was the fact that it was fully the London Marathon that day. So we actually went to go see Big Ben, and this is what we saw. And there was 1 million people, which kind of took a chunk out of our day, but it was fun to see. British people just being British. And on the subway, there was this man doing that. So then we left. We had to fly that night to Paris, and Paris was our original destination. So we were very excited to get there. We basically missed a whole day in Paris. And I was so anxious at this point to get there because our trip kind of hadn't even begun yet. And we finally get to Paris, and Paris is gorgeous. I've been once before, but going as an adult and going on like your, trip of love, an anniversary trip makes it so much more fun. Highly recommend. The weather was really nice. All of Europe was much colder than we thought. So in this clip, I'm actually freezing, but it's stunning. We walked along the main river down the center of the city, and we went to the Eiffel Tower and saw some of Notre Dame is almost done. They are fully renovating or, rebuilding it, and it was actually really impressive to see. But it was just a gorgeous, chill day, and we only basically had half a day in the city because we had to go get our bags, but it was very much worth it. I just loved it, and I want to go back to Paris ASAP. Obviously, the Eiffel. We love the Eiffel. We went to the second, that first level right there, and had a drink, and it is so much higher than you would think it is. We didn't even go to the top. It was kind of terrifying being on that level, but there's a gorgeous little restaurant and cafe up there, so it's a very fun place to hang. The next day, we ended up having to leave because we had to continue on our trip, and we were actually going to Lyon to visit one of my really good friends that lives there now. And this was the train through the French countryside. Look at that scenery. It was so picturesque and amazing. And I just love trains, and I got a little bit of work done. And we need more trains in America. I know that that's not new, but we really do. This was one of the first places we went in Lyon. I'd never been before, and if you haven't, I highly suggest going. It's a gorgeous town, gorgeous little city. There's a river that runs through it. There's this huge park that actually has a full zoo with actual zebras and giraffes and such, and there's a botanical garden, and there's my friend and her sweet dog Pancake that I would literally take a bullet for, and my boyfriend. And we love them, and this was such a gorgeous day, and we were so happy to just see another face, a friendly face. It was interesting because the garden or the park was in full bloom, but all of the trees were very different colors, I think just naturally. So it made for a extra pretty park, I would say. It just was it was so fun to walk around and be outside. And this is the river that runs through the center of the city. It kind of divides the city to the east and west, and over, I think it's on the east side, there's a really large hill that you can walk up and see an overlook, which was really pretty. Once again, it was, freezing, but after we walked around here, we actually went up that hill to the Basilica, I think of Notre Dame, which was gorgeous. It was an insane church, and this was the staircase that we had to walk up. And let me just tell you, there was literally 12,000 steps. It was crazy. We didn't see another person walking up the stairs, and we realized afterward, because there was a tram up to the hill that we didn't know existed. That was the view from the very top from the Basilica. It's Lyon, even though I said it was a smaller town, it's still huge because all of the cities in Europe are relatively flat and the buildings are relatively low. They just spread out a lot further and there's a lot more consistency in the architecture, which I just loved seeing, especially the terracotta roofs here. Next up, our flights got canceled. We had to leave a day early to Lisbon, which was our next destination. And I've never been to Spain and Portugal. That was the main focus of this trip. Paris and Lyon were just like extra add-ons that we decided to go before. Obviously, both of those almost didn't work out at all, and we had like a day in each. But this is where the trip really began, and Lyon is just gorgeous. I went and got dinner the very first night that we were here, and this is what you can expect. It's just 1,000 alleyways with friends and family and cute people at cute restaurants having cute meals, and it is so... They were decorated for a little holiday that they were having, but it was just so quintessential and cozy, and I feel like you could kind of stumble around anywhere and find something. Lisbon and Portugal especially are known for the tiles on the outside of the building, so you can actually see some of them here. They're usually blue. They're really ornate, hand-painted ceramic tiles that take a very long time to make, and they're everywhere. So that was definitely a really cool thing to see all over the city. You can see just another view. This was actually kind of in one of the busier areas of the city. I didn't realize that Lisbon is a huge travel destination for Europe and especially for the UK for like a summer vacation. So there was a ton of people all over the place. I felt like I was in a movie and everybody was just an extra around me because I'm living, you know, that main character energy. This was a market over on the other side of Lisbon and it was so fun. We walked around all over the place, and this is actually an old printing press that has been turned into a bookstore. This was the roof of that actual bookstore, and we just had some drinks up here. It was so pretty. I've gotten into Aperol spritzes on this trip. I highly recommend. They're so gorgeous and delicious, and I didn't like them before, and this rooftop made me fall in love with them. I mean, obviously, like, look at the sunset, look at the city. It's similar to Lyon and Paris, where everything is relatively low and spread out, but you can tell a very big difference in the architecture here, even just from the rooftops. And then this was the morning that we left. This was our little street that we stayed on. I loved it. There were so many cute restaurants. I had like one of the best brunches of my life. This place called Deer Breakfast. Highly recommend. And it, even in the morning, it is quiet because they don't usually wake up until later. So even the coffee shops didn't open until 9 a.m., maybe 8 a.m. if you were lucky. Then we headed to Porto, which Porto is on the coast of Portugal, and we took a train to get here, and it was just, I mean, look at it. It's just gorgeous. You can see a lot more of the variation of like Portuguese architecture here, especially in this shot where we can see all of the different colors of the buildings. This was a very hilly city. I mean, pretty much everywhere we went was just a lot of hills, so get ready to walk and get ready for your little lower back to hurt quite a bit. I don't suggest taking a heavy bag around with you all over the place. But the weather was so gorgeous. We got very lucky. We were only here for 2 days, and the first day was sunny and the second day was like very rainy and cold. And it's so interesting because even watching this back, you can see the colors of the roofs are different in every place that we have been. And obviously the architecture is different, but from these overviews, it's fun to look at. This is the main river that actually runs through Porto, and you can see that huge bridge right there on the left. We took a river cruise along the river and got a architecture history tour, and there's quite a lot of history to Porto. And the industries there have grown for, honestly, at this point, hundreds of years. And so there's a lot of really interesting old buildings that used to house fish markets and fish storage collection and even immigrant centers, especially if people came here by boat, which, you know, most did. This is the bridge. I mean, look at that. How did people build stuff like that back in the day? I don't even understand how we build modern buildings, much less back in the day when we like didn't have electricity. This is that boat tour I was talking about. It was interesting because nobody was the tour guide on this boat. We just listened to an app, and so every time that we would get to a specific place, the app would start talking about something nearby, which I actually thought was a really smart way to do a tour. So then we leave Porto, and this is the Madrid airport. All of the walkways are glass, and it was just really interesting to see. It was like a constant art piece, being able to see all of the people walk above us. I liked like the metaphor that they were going for a little bit, like in transit. I don't know. I'm probably thinking about this too much, but we went to Madrid. This was our last stop on this trip. And it was another short one because we were actually going to a wedding all the way in San Francisco. But you can see this is the street that we stayed on. And Madrid is very interesting. I didn't know what to expect, but it really is like New York, but like a better, greener New York. And the majority of this day, we did a bunch during basically the one full day that we had. But the main thing that we did was walk around their botanical garden and parks, and I have a bunch of videos from that, and I'm actually just gonna let them play because it's so peaceful and they were so gorgeous, and I'm so happy I got to see them in our limited time there, and if I go back, it's definitely a place that I would want to spend a lot more time in. So just enjoy these like chill vibes for the next minute, and I'll be back. This garden made me feel like I was in the Hunger Games in like District 1. I don't know. It's just very, very that. I mean, come on. Isn't this gorgeous? Doesn't this want to make you visit Madrid? I mean, I was just walking through this park and there's like a dad and a son playing soccer in this never-ending pathway. Like that's crazy. We need socialism in the US. We need our tax money to do more and make places like this. But this was our trip. This is my like version of a vlog. You can see all my family members walking into this last clip, so that way they could be in the vlog, which love them, love the trip. And if you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comments below, and I hope you have a great little day.